We've come to Snetterton in Norfolk for the UK debut of a series which aims to give drivers all the thrills of performance sports car racing without breaking the bank. This is the Saker Challenge. The challenge is a one-make endurance series for the Saker. It's a Dutch-built sports car which is established in the Netherlands, and they're quick. They come with Avon slick tyres, a 6-speed sequential gearbox with an option for a H pattern, and they're powered by turbocharged 2-litre engines which come from a Subaru Impreza. They produce 270 brake horsepower, weigh just 790 kilograms, and they're geared to do 160 miles an hour. Here's series organiser Paul Rose with more insight.
We're trying to give the competitors a great looking car that handles well, goes well also, but trying to keep the running costs at a sensible level. So in our regulations we're capping the amount of tyres that you can use, the type of parts that you can use. They're all controlled parts. And we can also share the car, share the cost, so you can have two drivers. So driver one will do the first race, driver two does the second race, and then they share the feature race.
And then the feature race, the 1 hour race, whether it's one or two drivers, they all have to come in and stop, that's right?
Yeah, there's a mandatory pit stop. The cars will have to sit down for about 60 seconds and then off they go.
After nearly a decade in the Fun Cup Endurance Championship, Steve Harris has moved across to Sakers, although he does have sports car experience.
Well, obviously driven radicals in the past, so it's sort of comparable with those, a bit different because this is more GT than prototype, but what a fantastic bit of kit. There's some good pedallers out there and it should be good, yeah.
Another driver to come from the Fun Cup is Tim Wilden, part of the JPR Credit Crunch team who dominated the 2009 season.
It's a step up. It's similar handling to the Fun Cup, but of course you've got slicks, so you've got more grip, you've got a little bit of downforce as well. The engine's a lot more powerful, so it's slightly trickier to drive, but just a little bit faster than the Fun Cup. I've done Fun Cup for 3 years. It was a great series. I really enjoyed it, and I must admit I do miss it a bit actually. But I just fancied doing something a little bit faster. So along came Saker, and it was a perfect opportunity.
While 2011 marks the first season of the UK series, Saker Sportscar races have been running in Holland and on the continent since 2004. So a number of front-running Dutch teams were invited to Snetterton to take part in the inaugural event. On board with Spirit Fitness as race one begins and two cars clash off the line. Steve Harris to the right of shot, coming off worst and charging past us. That's Ian Dockrell from the fourth row. Meanwhile, here come the leaders. Three abreast into turn one at Riches. It's a tight squeeze and there's contact between Paul Rose in the middle and Rudolf Meyer on the outside. On board with Meyer, he's not too impressed with that, but three were never going to fit into one, and the outside is always the riskiest place to be. The green machine of pole sitter Derwin Belt leads them into Brundle for the first time. Then it's Paul Rose up to third from eighth. The black car of Ian Dockrell, but Dockrell spins and gets collected by Rudolf Meyer with the onboard camera. The front right corner took a mighty whack, and Meyer, with nowhere to go, ploughed into him. And I think just before that, Steve Harris might also have got caught up in that. A dramatic first lap then, as we go back on board with Mark Burton for Spirit Fitness. And that's Ron Randash spinning at turn 2, Montreal, to put Burton back up to 6th place. So after all that, not entirely surprising to see the safety car being deployed. The good news is that Ian Dockrell is absolutely fine, but his stricken Saker is stranded on the track. Well, as the recovery team arrives, there are 1 or 2 cracks on display, but hopefully none of them relate to a damaged chassis. Unfortunately though, once the car gets back to the garage, it becomes apparent that it might be out for the entire day. Ian talks us through the incident.
Didn't get enough heat in the rear tyres, unfortunately lost the car. Had a good start from, I think it was qualified 9th up to 3rd. Just didn't have enough heat, came round under the braking and just lost the back. And unfortunately, as I span, the car got very wide, and unfortunately Steve Harris clipped me, which ruined my own race and unfortunately ruined Steve's.
Well, since the restart, Derwin Belt, the Dutch driver, has been pulling away to the tune of 1 second per lap, but it's still mighty close in the battle for second. The 48 car of Paul Rose just about fending off another of the Dutch guest drivers, Rudolf Meyer. Vincent Lesage runs 4th, and here's the fight for 5th. Bob Tomlinson in the CCS Media car just 2/10 clear of Mark Burton in the Spirit Fitness Team O'Brien machine. And here's the view from Mark's car as he brakes from 100 miles an hour down to 35 for this newly remodelled second corner at Snetterton. The hairpin followed by a sharp left onto the Bentley straight, where Tomlinson runs wide, and through comes Mark Burton to pick up 5th place. We're into the second half of this 30-minute race, and on board with Tim Wheeldon. He's a couple of laps down after picking up a puncture, but his pace is good and he's flying after Bob Tomlinson in the CCS car. Here we go, Tim launches one down the inside at Murray's, but he's lost it under braking, takes a trim over the grass, and around goes the back end. He'll rejoin, but a frustrating debut so far for Tim. Locking horns once again, Paul Rose and Rudolf Meyer as they continue this race-long battle for second place. Paul's main role these days is as series organiser. He's drafted in at the last minute to replace an injured driver, and he does have an excellent racing pedigree as a multiple saloon car champion and race winner in the Fun Cup. He's got a real fight on his hands here though as they work their way through the Montreal hairpin. Meyer carries terrific speed onto the straight, and the Dutch driver finally charges past to pick up the place. This is the final lap in a race that has been thoroughly dominated by Derwin Belt in the green Bas Koeten Racing entry. He's more than 30 seconds clear as he laps the 5th place car of CCS Media. Impressive stuff, particularly given that this is his first visit to Snetterton. The checkered flag is ready, and Derwin Belt wins the first ever race of the Saker Challenge UK. Rudolf Meyer secures that second place after Paul Rose dropped back with a slow puncture during the closing stages. Mark Burton, Bob Tomlinson and Tom Franken round out the top 6. So will race 2 be as eventful as a season opener? We're about to find out as this second 30-minute encounter gets underway. On board with Spirit Fitness, Graham Pattle behind the wheel for this one. Just ahead, Tim Wheeldon in the Fluent Motorsport entry. Up ahead, though, it's Derwin Belt that leads from Herbert Bender and Paul Rose. Tim Wheeldon's up to 6th, and there he is, just ahead on the run out of Rich's corner as the midfield all jostle for track position. So it's race 1 winner Derwin Belt who leads once again. The number 50 Jad Balja car in second. Herbert Wender taking over from teammate Rudolf Meyer for this one. And then both drivers will share the car for the longer 60-minute race later on. Rose is 3rd, Ciro Carinanti 4th for CCS. Wheeldon's up to 5th. And this is Graham Pattle overtaking Vincent Lesage to pick up 6th position as they charge into the bomb hole at around 18 miles an hour. Start of lap 2, and here come the leaders. No changes inside the top 4. At the back of that group, CCS Media with Ciro Carinanti taking over from Bob Tomlinson. That team also in the Fun Cup Championship this year. On board with Tim Wheeldon as he charges down the Bentley straight, and he keeps going straight onto the escape road, and Tim really struggling to slow the car down. So it was quite a moment at 135 miles an hour. Now he rejoins the circuit with all the speed scrubbed off. Through comes Graham Pattle to pick up 5th place. So Tim survives. Hopefully that was an error rather than a more sinister problem developing with the car. Meanwhile, just as he did in race 1, Derwin Belt is beginning to open up a healthy advantage as he wrings the neck out of this turbocharged 2-litre, 340 brake horsepower per tonne power plant. Trying to hang on to him is the number 50 car of team Jad Balja, who won a couple of races at Zandvoort during the lead up to this race. And the leading British car is still Paul Rose in the JPR Motorsport entry as he looks for his second podium of the day. So it's another straightforward victory as Derwin Belt again finishes over 30 seconds clear of his nearest rival. Will anybody be able to find enough speed to put his dominance to an end? Well, the most likely threat is another of the Dutch entries as Herbert Wender takes a comfortable second place finish.
It's perfect. I have a lot of fun. Snetterton circuit is great to drive. It's technical. It's not so not as easy as it looks on the picture. So having a lot of fun. All of us, by the way.
Ciro Carinanti just misses out on the podium in 4th with Graham Pattle and Vincent Lesage 5th and 6th after Tim Wheeldon dropped back with a sticking throttle. Welcome back. We've seen Derwin Belt dominating the first 2 Saker races, but there may be a glimmer of hope for his rivals, and it relates to tyres. I've only got one set of tyres, so I'm using the same tyres I've had on in the first 2 races. So I don't expect to be able to run flat out for the entire race. Hopefully I can build an advantage and then back off later in the race. On board with Ian Dockrell, who's back on track after Paul Rose steps aside to let him drive the 48 car. He's going to share with the other race 1 crash victim, Steve Harris, as this 60-minute feature race gets underway. And what a great start from Dockrell. Up ahead, Derwin Belt is just about going to hold the lead, but Herbert Bender is pressing hard. CCS grabbed 3rd, Wheeldon goes 4th, then it's Lesage and the red car of Ian Dockrell 5th and 6th. On board with Dockrell, who's also racing in the British GT Championship this year. That's Wheeldon passing Tomlinson for 3rd under braking into Montreal up ahead. Dockrell also brakes late, but maybe a little too deep into the corner. Runs wide on the exit, bogs down, and that was the Spirit Fitness car charging past to take 5th. Here come the leaders, the 2 Dutch drivers still nose to tail with Wheeldon a couple of seconds back in 3rd. Now we ride once again with Ian Dockrell as he thunders down this back straight, and that's him quickly regaining 5th position as they hit the brakes and head into the left-hander at Brundle. So it's Belts from Buenda, Wheeldon, Tomlinson, and there in 5th place is the Red Rocket of JPR Motorsport, driven by Ian Dockrell. Back on board with the Spirit Fitness Team O'Brien car. Quick dab of the brakes as they turn into the bomb hole. And now it's foot to the floor as they run towards Coram Curve. A challenge for position, but Dockrell holds on. So it's early days, but this is probably the closest anyone has been to the tail of Derwin Belt at the end of lap 1. But Buenda keeping the leader honest for now at least. Meanwhile, we go back to this battle for 5th. And that doesn't sound good. The Spirit Fitness car struggling to find a gear, so Ian Dockrell powers away. And then that's Ron Randash taking advantage to pick up a place. There's another of the Bas Koeten entries from Holland. That's Tom Franken running in 8th place. His best finish so far, 6th in race 1. Meanwhile, his compatriots continue to show the Brits the way. It's fair to say the Dutch teams have had far more experience of running these Sakers. The leading homegrown driver is still Tim Wheeldon, and it's good to see Tim up there fighting for a podium after a pretty luckless day so far. After a blinding first lap, he's moved from the 3rd row up to 3rd place. And this is how he did it. A replay of Tim's start. He gets off the line well and charges straight past the 57 car of Vincent Lesage. Up through the gears using the sequential gearbox as they accelerate from 0 to 100 miles an hour in just over 10 seconds. Through Riches, he now begins to close on the CCS Media car. A short sprint, and it'll be hard on the brakes for the hairpin at Montreal. A committed move. Wheeldon's already decided he's going for it. That's a great move to pick up 3rd place. There's Lesage, just 22 years old. Behind him, the number 18 Randash. Then it's Franken. So what has happened to the Spirit Fitness car? Well, it's still out there because this is the onboard, but I fear it's heading for the pits. Indeed it is. And that does seem to be gearbox related. Here's Bob Tomlinson in the CCS car, but he's a bit out of shape coming into the final corner at Murray's, clatters the curb. And through comes Ian Dockrell to pick up 4th place. That final corner is tricky now they've turned it into a sharp left, because the car is still unbalanced from the high-speed exit to the preceding corner at Coram when you hit the brakes. No such dramas for our race leader though. He's just beginning to edge away from Buenda in the 2nd place car, but based on their superior championship position in Holland, the number 50 car will be given a greater time penalty during the pit stops. That might just give Tim Wheeldon the opportunity to get in between the 2 Dutch cars. And right on cue, into the pits comes the number 50 Jeff Balger car from 2nd place. Also in, Vincent Lesage. Now, even though he's driving alone, the former kart racer still has to make this mandatory timed pit stop, and that's to make sure that none of the 2 driver teams get penalised, as we see Rudolf Meyer taking over from Herbert Buenda. Lesage, meanwhile, doesn't need to get out of the car, and he's not refuelling or changing tyres. This is purely a compulsory stop to keep things equal in the race. Now, the pit stops having all been completed, it's still Derwin Belt that leads, but there have been some significant changes, most notably the fact that his 5-second lead has turned into a 61-second advantage. That extra time penalty really costing Buenda and Meyer any chance of victory. Much closer in 3rd place is Tim Wheeldon, but he was forced to push hard just after the pit stop period because the CCS car of Ciro Carinanti was absolutely flying after him at one stage. But that car has now slowed, possibly missing some gears, and the main issue to be resolved in the closing stages is whether or not Ciro can keep the car going to fend off Steve Harris, who has now taken over the JPR car from Ian Dockrell. Vincent Lesage is on course for another 6th place finish in the Spa05.com entry. And then a further lap down, it's Tom Franken running in 7th position. 3 laps back and having a lonely race in 8th place, it's Ron Randash in the Johan Kran Motorsports entered car. Back to this battle for 4th place, and you're right with Steve Harris as he charges past the CCS car on the run up the centre straight. Carinanti struggling with an ailing gearbox and unable to do much about losing the position with just a couple of laps remaining. Almost home is the 2nd place car, and behind it the race leader, which means that Derwin Belt has lapped everybody out there except for the 2nd place car. Our man readies the checkered flag, and the first one to take it for his hat-trick is Derwin Belt. Buenda and Meyer finish 2nd again. Tim Wheeldon gets his first Saker podium, while the new partnership of Harris and Dockrell proves fruitful with that 4th place finish, narrowly pipping the unlucky CCS Media. So at the end of a busy first day of British-based racing for the Saker Challenge is Tim Wheeldon, who takes 3rd place overall and wins the UK class in the feature race.
Tim, sort of a frustrating day for 2/3 of it, but it came good in the end.
Yeah, first 2 races, problems in both races. 2 rear punctures in the first one, which dropped me a lap, and then in the second one, throttle cable jammed wide open. so I had to pit again, lost another lap, but the final race, absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Got a great start, took a couple of cars off the line, a couple more after the first corner, and then just sat in third for the whole race.
And I know you were out at Zandvoort, but it's the first time you've raced in these cars in the UK. What are your first impressions? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. The cars are superb, they really are. They're like, the Fun Cup cars are really easy to drive. The Saker cars are just like a faster version, and they are absolutely awesome.
And many congratulations to Derwin Belt. He came, he saw, he drove off into the distance and he conquered. The next round of the Saker Challenge takes us to Anglesey. We'll see you there.